Hey guys, welcome to Tuesday night. What's happening? So, what's new in the world, everybody out there? Yeah, just got out of the shower. I'm a mess. It was a busy day today. So, all right, we got just one in the room right now. Okay, well, who we got lurking in the background? Wow, that is a quiet start. I guess there's a lot of people busy with this hurricane that's coming through. I hope that everybody that Yeah, I hope that everybody's, there's going to be issues for sure, but yeah, I hope everyone weathers the storm as good as can be hoped for. But it's shaping up to be a pretty bad hurricane. J. Russell Frinch, hello from Melbourne. How are you doing, buddy? Barry Cooter, hey man, how you doing? 6th Street Garage, how you doing, man? Good to have you along. Phil Buckley, Perth. Randy B. Hey, Kiwi. How you doing, Randy? Cool Store. Hi from South Auckland. Just finishing lunch. Ah, there you go. So look, most of the people in the room are Aussies and Kiwis. Well, that's cool. That's cool. Who's going to be watching Bathurst? Let's have a show of hands. Who's watching Bathurst? Who's going to watch all of it? Because these people that watch the first half an hour and the last half an hour, they don't count. They're not really watching Bathurst. J. Russell Finch, what did you get up to in the shop today? Well, we had a couple of things going on. I spent a fair chunk of the day fighting this Mustang's to fear long frame, they call it, or long chassis, which is kind of like a 3/4 chassis. That's, if you've been watching that Swiss cheese video, chain, you know what that's about. But yeah, trying to get it to fit is. Yeah, there's a lot of head scratching going on. It's not, I mean, to be honest with you, it's just not going to plan. The way it's meant to go in, it's not working out. And there's been quite a few phone calls and photo swapping with Mustangs to fear. But we have not got to the bottom of it yet. There's something going on. I have a sneaking suspicion that the chassis, or this 3/4 chassis, might have got a bit bent in transit and shipping. But yeah, remains to be seen. I've got, I've been talking with the head guy from there, and I've got a couple of things I've got to do tomorrow. We're probably going to take it back out and take some photos of it, try if we can see if we can determine whether it is tweaked or something's happened. But the guy bought it about 2 years ago, and it's taken this long to kind of get it to somewhere that can put it in for him. So it's moved around a little bit, and it was in the hands of another shop for a little while. So yeah, time will tell. But hopefully that'll be a video coming out this week or this weekend when we get on top of it and get it sorted. Which I got a pretty good idea what I need to do, but I just don't want to. I think I'm going to have to cut on it, which I don't really want to do, but I'm not seeing a lot of options at the moment. But tomorrow's a new day. You come back with a fresh head, and sometimes these solutions just jump out at you. Anyway, what else have we got? So yeah, and the other one today was a really, really nice 68 Firebird, which is another video that's coming, where basically the left front wheel did its best to come off, like the suspension and upright and all. So yeah, watch out for that one. It ended fine. There was no real damage, but it could have ended disastrously. Now, Barry Cooter, me. 0% liberal. Hey, Kiwi from Athens, Tennessee. Okay, that's not far away. Phil Buckley, yes, I'm here. Bill Buckley rode my old Harley around Bathurst. The hill is very steep. Mate, it's very steep. The TV camera really does not show how steep it is. I walked around it one year. Well, not all of it, but we walked around some of it. And, yeah, it's very steep up and it's very steep down. It is, in my opinion, the greatest motor race that the world has. The track is just so different to anything else and so demanding. Yeah, it's awesome. Alan Trimble, how you doing, man? Glenn, watching from sunny coast Queensland. Love your work. Well, thanks, man. Jay Russell Finch, that's crazy build. Not much of the original car, but you sure are getting it done. Yeah, it's coming together pretty quick because we're putting big pieces in. And like when we get on top of the chassis, that's going to make a real difference. Like I had it kind of mocked up with the torque boxes and the new chassis, and we just couldn't get it. The front of the chassis is nosing down, like the rails, the main rails, forward of the firewall are just not at the right angle. And when we get them to the right angle, it's messing with too much other stuff and it's not working. So we'll get, I'll show as much as I can on video, but some of it's a bit hard to video, I'll be honest with you. Roy Miller, hey man, how you doing? Good to have you along. Josh Homan, good to be here. Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for coming. GCRC, good evening. Stray Bullet, hey, how you doing, man? Very cool. Apparently there's a new heritage class at Bathurst. One of the cars is a VP. Nice. Perkins Racing Commodore, driven by Greg Murphy. Wow, that's cool. Yeah, Greg's a good guy and a good peddler. I was lucky enough to have a breakfast with him one year when they would when the touring cars were in Pukekohe, and yeah, it was actually meant to be with what's his name? One of the Aussie drivers that commentates now, and we were supposed to be having a breakfast with him, and he kind of came in, walked in, said hi guys, have a good day, and kind of buggered off again, which was pretty poor. And yeah, Greg Murphy jumped in, just completely volunteered, and like just on literally a moment's notice, and came in and sat down with us and chatted. And he was racing that day. He came in and sat down with us for about half an hour and answered all our questions. There was about 8 of us. Like, won a radio competition. I didn't, but one of my buddies did, and he brought me along, luckily. And yeah, Greg was a real gem, an absolute gentleman. Entertained us very well. So yeah, I always thought pretty highly of him since then. It was Mark Scaife was the Aussie driver, and he was just an arrogant prick. And I don't talk harshly of too many people, but that's the only way I could explain the way he didn't want to be there. It was very obvious, and he got obviously roped into this radio competition, being the patsy that had to have breakfast with these 8 people, and he didn't want to be there, and he made it very clear. So yeah, if there's any Mark Scaife fans watching, I'm like, sorry, that was my experience. Anyway, what else we got? But yeah, that'd be fun to watch that heritage class. Mustang T-shirt, yeah, but yep, that was on the rack at one of the places, my wash shops. I was getting dragged around there on a Sunday, and it's like, look at that T-shirt, and so I got it. Andy Nickel, good evening from Alberta. That's cool. Stray Bullet, fancy looking. Yeah, it's an old Packard, I believe. Yeah, I was just looking quickly for a photo to put in the thumbnail. I was like, that'll work. Long Island Mopars, how are you doing, mate? Yeah, all's well in Tennessee. A little bit worried about the poor buggers that are going to have to deal with this hurricane that's about to hit. But yeah, hopefully it'll calm down, to a force 3 instead of a 5 that they're talking about. And yeah, just hope that there's no loss of life. That's really the key thing. but time will tell. I'm certainly thinking about the people that are in the thick of that. It's pretty rough. 160 mile an hour winds I've seen, predicted. It's like, whoa. Meow Station 1. Hi, Kiwi. What's going on with the Cougar Fastback? The Cougar Fastback's left the shop. The owner of that car he's having a little break from it. He's got too many other irons in the fire with 3 other cars he's got on the go. There's only so much one guy can do at one time. So he's giving the Cougar a little rest, which is allowing me to get on to some other cars. And so it'll be back hopefully next year sometime. GCRC, working on a 73 F350 for a customer and needing a carb rebuild kit. Parts store says they need the numbers from the ID tag, but it's long gone. Any other way to ID a 2-barrel motorcraft carb? Yeah, they're pretty, they were pretty similar. Like it's probably the same 2-barrel car that's, on the small block Fords as well. They made like millions of those little motorcraft carbs. I would try and find a different parts store. I think, someone who's a little bit more familiar, like some of the parts places, you say 1973 and they're automatically out. They're not going to try and use their brain and cross-reference it and figure out what it would be. And also just Google it. You'd be surprised what will come up, between eBay and places like that. I don't believe you need the ID tag. It's a motorcraft 2-barrel carb, and they should be able to get close to it, from the fact that it's a 73 F350. The cubic inch of the engine, and that should get them pretty close. There might be 2 or 3 options. And what I usually do is look at the kit will have a part number. I think it's Irwin or someone like that make a lot of the carb kits for them. And if you click on the part number, that you can often find your way to an exploded view of the carburetor or an exploded view of the gaskets that are in the kit. And, if you've got the carburetor apart, you can usually pick which is the right carburetor. So keep at it. You'll figure it out. Bill McCoyska, how you doing, man? Good to have you along. Richard Ray, hi, Kiwi, was wanting to know what is going on with the Mustang Cougar. Oh, I just answered that. So hopefully that already answered that question for you. The Mustang Cougar. I think that's what you're asking about. Glenn, sounds like a Scaife thing. Yeah. He's a tool. Well, there you go. You see, so obviously I didn't offend you, so that's good. But he's quite a good commentator, though. You kind of got to give him that. But he's Australian, so he knows how to talk. Glenn Nickerson radio competition, did it involve singing? No, mate, no, it did not. God help us. No, that was it was a buddy of mine that won it, but it was it was one of those, be the 12th caller in and you get tickets for you and your mates to go to the the Aussie touring cars at Pukekohe. So and this was a mate of mine, Colin, who pops in here occasionally, and man, he has a knack of winning those radio. They're just little prizes. It's not first division lotto, but he has a knack for winning those little radio competitions. And he's a good guy to be around when he wins those things. Barry Cooter, I've heard about Skate's attitude before. Yeah, this is it. And that, I seriously doubt if anyone's ever heard the similar things about Greg Murphy, because I just don't think that's him. Greg is, I guess realistically, I don't know him particularly well. I met him once, big deal. But you get a feel for people, and he was just genuine and down to earth, and he was just chatting, and he was asking us about our vehicles and how we were involved in motorsport, and he was interesting, and he was also interesting in the people he was interacting with. So good dude. 6th Street Garage. Kiwi, tell us about some of the cool cars from down under that we can't get in the US, or engines we can't get here. All right. Well, yeah. Okay. There's a few of them. Obviously, with the Mopars, and well, all of them. Mopars and Fords. The cars were quite similar from Australia to the States up until kind of the mid '60s, and then they started. Aussies got more into designing their own cars rather than like buying large percentages of the car from America and then adding their little touches to it. They actually, like late '60s, they started making things completely their own, and that's when it kind of got interesting. But then the Mopars in the '70s went on, and they had Valiant Chargers, which were nothing like a Dodge Charger at all. One of the things I find the coolest with the Aussie stuff now is it's kind of unfortunate because the average guy can't afford an old Aussie muscle car anymore. They're just out of this world on price. If you think you pay a lot here for cars, the Aussies are so dedicated, which is kind of cool. It's a big part of their certainly motoring heritage. Like, they did a fantastic job. It's relatively small. I mean, it's a big country physically, but it's a relatively small country population-wise, and they created a very strong motor car manufacturing industry, and you've got to give them full credit for that. They did a good job. They made some good products. They borrowed engines from the US cousins a number of times. Some of them, like the Ford, they continued on with the 6-cylinder Ford Falcon engines, which then morphed into twin cam 4-valve 4-liter 6-cylinder, which is called the Barra, which is an absolute giant killer. That's a fantastic engine, creating like 2,000 horsepower has been achieved numerous times with the Barra engines, 4-liter 6-cylinder. And they routinely, well, I shouldn't say routinely, but a lot of these 4-liter Barras are making 1,000 horsepower on the street. The 2,000 ones are drag races, 6-second wonders. But a lot of them are making 1,000, 1,200 horsepower for street cars, which is absolutely amazing. And then Ford also ran with the Cleveland engine, which kind of didn't fare so well here in the States. They loved the Windsors here in the States, and the Clevelands was, they're quite a bit harder to find, and the aftermarket is not as well supported, like pistons and cranks and all the stroker kits that you can get for the Windsor. A lot less of them available for the Cleveland. And then GM, well, GM adopted the LS when the LS came out, which was Holden in Australia, and they ran with the LS for a long time. They did their own version of the small block Chev, which was the Holden motor, which was a 308 and a 253 cubic inch V8, which was quite different to a small block Chev. Kind of similar, but at the same time quite different. One of the guys on here one night was saying that they shared something with one of the Oldsmobile engines. So they drew from their roots in the States here. But we can make our own engine. We don't need to pay licensing or whatever it costs them to, have a Chevy America engine. They made their own, and the 308, was a great engine. By today's standard, it wasn't a stellar performer, but it was a good performer and it was reliable. I don't ever remember being any weak links, particularly with the 308s or the 253s. They were great. But there's a lot of different cars, and YouTube's a good resource for seeing some of that stuff. Just literally search Aussie muscle cars and you'll be amazed with what you come up with. don't know you call it a muscle car, but they had a Leyland P76, which was kind of another Australian-made car, unique to Australia. Didn't do particularly well. It had the Range Rover V8 in it from British Leyland in England, and that one never really got off the ground, which was a bit of a shame. But as in most motor car endeavours, there's always a few failures, and the Leyland just wasn't in the right place at the right time. The P76, but it's a unique looking car. A lot of them with this 4.4 litre V8, all aluminum block heads, the whole deal, with a 4-speed column change manual transmission, and autos. But wasn't that many, particularly here. I can't think of an American model that had a 4-speed column change, but that was reasonably common in Australia and England. So Phil Buckley, old Brocky was supposed to be a bit arrogant too. Did you ever meet him? Died doing what he loved in Perth Hills. I didn't ever meet him, no, but you kind of got that vibe from him a little bit, when you see him on TV. But he was, put yourself in his shoes. He was a folk hero, like adored by millions, literally. So how do you not get a big head? When there's that many people just fawning over you, like when apparently like his merchandising, at the races, you'd go there and he'd have a tent or a semi truck, and like he sold more merchandise than anybody. They absolutely loved him. He was, I guess, like he was Australia's Dale Earnhardt, really. But very hard not to have an ego when you're that famous, that popular, and you've achieved. He won more Bathurst than anybody else ever has. There was. You could say he was a bit arrogant, or you could say he didn't suffer fools gladly. It depends how you look at it, I guess. Mike Batista, the Cougar Fastback, is a dream car. Yeah, well, hopefully not. Hopefully it's going to come to reality, but time will tell. Barry Cooter, never heard of Brock not being approachable except for when he had a race to win. Well, that's fair. When you're trying to get your race, your race face on, then and he'd be like, I know when I was motor racing, like it didn't matter how many races you'd done, you were always nervous as hell before the start, and really you weren't particularly worth being around because you were snappy and you just wound up like a clock spring, and then once the flag dropped, then all that angst, all that apprehension and the tension and the adrenaline would just flow away, and you just go about what you were trying to do. But that lead up, and it wrapped up, a day before you were nervous and walking around, and on the day it was worse, and you're peeing every half an hour because you're just nervous energy, and then you'd start racing, and all that would just disappear like in an instant. And there would all that adrenaline and butterflies will just go away. It was quite amazing. When you get to the end of the race and you couldn't wait for the next one, like for next weekend, the next race, and then as the week progressed, you'd get more and more nervous about it and think, oh God, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Yeah, and it would the cycle would just repeat itself on a weekly or fortnight or monthly basis, depending when the races were. Glenn Nickerson, I got my parts catalogue out in the garage. I've been in the parts business for over 35 years. Be right back. Okay. Oh, you're talking to USRC. Okay, I missed that question. Rex Farris, howdy. How you doing, man? Thanks. Just going off to my local Napa. Saying thanks. Local Advanced Auto Parts doesn't even offer any options. Yeah, well, there you go. A lot of it can be about who you're asking, not what you're asking, but who you're asking. So, and some of these parts guys really don't get much training, and that hands-on experience. Some of the people behind the counter probably never seen a 73 F350, so, and we expect them to find parts for it, which, can be a tough ask. 6th Street Garage, what are we drinking tonight? Tonight I'm having some apple bourbon, some Jack Daniel's apple bourbon. So it's got a little bit of apple in it. Makes it very, very drinkable. It's quite nice. Yeah, okay. It's a 73 F350 with a 390. That shouldn't be hard to find a carb kit for. It really shouldn't. Really shouldn't. Barracuda, there's a YouTube video of Brock and Murphy having a long casual chat that showed what good guys they were. Yeah. Yeah, that'd be good to watch. I'd like to see that. Or just search Brock Murphy interview, something like that, you think? Phil Buckley, got to go, picking up a 68 Phoenix, kind of a unique Aussie car that's from Canada. A 68 Phoenix, it's an Aussie car from Canada. That's unusual. Well, if you're still here, come back and talk to us about it next week. Dan Ballard, early 70s Fords down under were great looking cars. Did they stop using the 351 Cleveland in 74 like in the US? 74. I'm not sure, when they stopped using the Cleveland. I'd be guessing, and anyone can guess. Don Ballard had a 71 Cougar with a 351 Cleveland. Great motor. They were a great motor. They were absolutely a great motor. Jeff, Kiwi, in your opinion, who has the best car culture? Oz, New Zealand, USA? Depends how you look at it, really. I don't know a lot about the Aussie culture. I haven't been immersed in it, to really pass much comment on it. Certainly what I've seen in magazines is pretty big. It's pretty large. A lot of American stuff over there. And if it's just a numbers game, well, obviously the US has got everybody beat hands down. I think New Zealand, and this is a theory, not nothing based on fact, just a gut feel, but I think on a per capita basis, New Zealand's right there as far as, American cars, per 1,000 people. There's a lot of American cars in New Zealand. And given the price of the things, like a Mustang you might get 50 grand for here, you get 120 for in New Zealand. You've got to, because it's expensive to get them complied, it's expensive to get them shipped to New Zealand, you've got a bunch of taxes you've got to pay. So, your 50 grand Mustang here, but if nobody even makes a profit margin of any kind on it, you're going to add 30 grand, 20 to 30 grand to the price by the time you get it landed in New Zealand. But they keep lining up, they keep wanting them, people keep buying them. Mike Batista, the Ford 351 Cleveland, very fast engine. It certainly had a lot of potential. Yeah, it had a lot of potential. They went a little bit big in the cylinder head ports on the 4Vs, and the 2Vs actually made more power. The 2V heads with a 4V manifold on them actually made more power because they had slightly smaller, inlet and exhaust ports. They got a little bit carried away with the size of the ports on the heads for the 4V. So you'll see a lot of the trick ones are running 2V heads. Just got my 59 Farmall M fired back up. Carburetor was putting up a good fight there for a minute. Unfinished project. Yeah, they can be fickle. The carburetors can be fickle for sure. Barracuda, heard of the Aussie-built Purvis Eureka? Yes, I have heard of the Purvis Eureka. A guy I used to know from rallying, he would hill climb one. Till the day he flipped it over and landed on its roof, and then they couldn't get him out. Now, he was fine, but it took them. They had to flip the car back on its wheels because the whole roof section lifted up and kind of went forward, and it was a competitive little car on a hill climb. But he got it upside down, and that raised a few question marks as to how suitable and whether it was eligible, which should be really racing. But I can't remember what the outcome of that. Harvard Daniels was his name. Don't ask me how I remember that, but yeah. Here we go now. Don Ballot, 4 on the tree. Yeah, it was 4 on the tree. Dr. Art's in the house. How you doing, man? Yeah, I saw that picture of that Dodge with the door on it. It looks so much better with the door on there, but I guess that's probably true of a lot of vehicles. But yeah, good to see you making good progress on it, man. J. Russell Finch. Brock lost a lot of respect with the energy polarizer. Yeah, he did. He did. That was a little bit of a sad chapter in his career. Yeah, he seemed to recover from that and like get away from that. For those that don't know, he was making. They had they were making Brock Commodores, which was basically they used his name under license. And Brocky somehow got onto this weird thing. It was almost like a religious cult thing that he kind of got involved with. Not really religious cult, but it was it was kind of an odd period. And he decided he wanted these energy polarizers installed in all the Brock Commodores because it aligned, polarized the car and aligned all the neutrons and some such thing in the car and made it go better. And it really was just a crock of shit. But he, for whatever reason, he'd been sold on it, bought into it, did something, and Holden kind of stepped up and said, yeah, like, you're a big deal, Brock, but no, we're not doing that. So that was the end of that relationship between Holden and Brock, at least at a commercial level anyway. I think he still drove the Holdens, but yeah, he was no longer at that point, if I've got my history right, he was no longer involved in the Brock Commodore, which was done through Holden, which is GM in Australia. Yeah. Don Ballot, Guinness Extra Stout for me this evening. Yeah, I can't do Guinness and Stout. I can't drink that beer. I like beer, but yeah, I can't do Guinness. It's like, ugh. Stray Bullet, Japan has an interesting car culture. Yeah, it really does. They're all over the map. They like American cars. There's a subculture, quite a lot of American cars in Japan, like 60s stuff. There's a lot of people in Japan too. You got to remember. So yeah, there's the crowd that loves the old American. There's the crowd that loves the older Jap stuff, like 60s, 70s, 80s Japanese little sports cars that they had. The early Nissan Skylines and Toyota Celicas and stuff like that. And then there's another crowd that have these wildly customized little mini cars that they have, like little minivans. And if you thought the van craze in the States was something out there, then man, you should see what the Japanese do. Some of the stuff they do is like, it almost makes you laugh. I mean, shouldn't be too critical, but someone's car is theirs to do with what they want. If they like the look of a certain thing a certain way, then more power to them. But some of the stuff they do on these weird little minivan things they have is just outrageous, like splitters that stick out the front of the car like 3 feet. Some weird stuff. But yeah, it's certainly worth a look at, just as an eye opener. Not that you're going to get your next custom idea from watching what they're doing. I really don't think you will. But yeah. Glenn Nicholson, looks like he's working hard trying to figure out this 2-barrel carb kit. Glenn looks like he got it all worked out, man. Yeah, I really didn't think it would be. There's not that many different options on those carburetors. They were just so They've just used the same thing on so many engines. John Giddens. Supposedly the 351 Cleveland has internals related to the 460 and the 351 Windsor internals related to the 289. Well, the 351 Windsor is just a tall deck 289. It's the same, all the stuff, the heads interchange, same bell housing goes on, transmissions. They're almost the same to look at, except because the block is an inch or inch and a quarter taller. So the V, it makes the engine wider because it goes further out. So the 351 intake won't fit a 289 302, simply because the heads are too far apart because of the taller deck. But the taller deck allowed them a bigger stroke, which is where they got the extra 50 cubic inches. But the 351 Windsor stroked out to a 408 is a fabulous motor. A really strong motor. I built a Mustang for a guy many years ago, and that had the 408 stroke of 351 Windsor with the Cleveland heads on it, and they were nicknamed a Clevor. But yeah, Edelbrock created a kit for them where they made an intake manifold that fitted with the Cleveland heads will bolt onto the Windsor block, but the intake won't work. So Edelbrock, made the necessary changes with the water ports and stuff like that, and created a manifold that would basically meant you could put a Cleveland heads on a Windsor block, and away you went. And had the 408 needed a little bit more breathing than the Windsor heads offered. So with the Cleveland heads, which had bigger ports, it was a match made in heaven, and that was a super strong car. I mean, you could not roll, but you could stomp on it in third and it would break the tyres free. And decent sized tyres too, not little biscuit cutters. It was a quick car. What else have we got? John Giddens, have you ever come across a Heron MJ1 Lotuson style maiden Rotorua? I've heard of the Heron, but I've never seen one. I've heard, the name rings a bell, but like vaguely, I'll be honest. But Lotuson style maiden Rotorua. That'd be that's an interesting bit of history, isn't it? Barry Cooter. Brock participated in a charity classic rally. He pulled up to a broken down car to help. His co-driver said, "What do you reckon, Pete?" "Shit in the carby," he replied. "If you think it will help." Oh my God, charming. Yeah, he did a lot of. That's how he got killed in the Targa, Tasmania rally, I believe. Left the road and hit a tree, which was pretty tragic. But yeah, he liked doing that kind of stuff. He never lost his passion for driving, never ever. Shame he paid such a high price in the end, but he went out doing what he loves. So that's if you got to go out, then yeah, why not do it doing something you love. What else we got? John, 351 Windsor has different cam. Put one in a 289 302, scrap your firing order. Yeah, the firing order is different on them. Barry Cooter, Brock Unplugged with Greg Murphy is the title of that video. I'm going to go look for that, man. I'm going to go look for that. I'm sure that'll be well worth watching. John Giddens, Mark Beer has done a video recently on Brock and HDT. HDT, that's right, Holden Dealer Team. Yeah. That was before it became HSV, wasn't it? Stray Bullet. I used to know a guy that had an old big block Chev powered Lola Can-Am car that he purchased from a Japanese guy that used to go out and race around Japan in the middle of the night with his friends in an old race car. That That's cool. Oh, big block Can-Am car. Wow, that'd be a beast to drive. They probably didn't handle particularly well either. Some of those early Can-Am cars were a handful, like fast, but man, you had to be on top of them. It took some skill. They'd bite you. They were a type of car that wanted to get away from you, wanted to hurt you. Andy Nicol was watching Italian motorcycle hill climb. Those guys are insane. Well, anyone who races a motorcycle is insane. That just goes with the territory. If they don't break their necks coming off, there's those bloody great spikes on the wheels. Oh, okay. I know the one you mean now, yeah. When they're trying to get up that incredibly steep hill, yeah. Yeah, those are brutal. That's a bit like the ice. Have you seen the motorbikes that do the ice racing? And they have like 2.5 inch long sharp steel spikes. So they've got some grip. It's kind of like speedway racing. They race on an oval track, but it's an ice oval track. And yeah, they're doing some fabulous speeds. The grip with the spikes is, as good as a hard packed clay any day. Yeah, it's insane how much grip they've got on ice. But yeah. Don Bella, I think Speedmaster still makes Cleavor intakes and heads that on a 408 would, that on a 408 would be an animal. Yeah, it is. It was. Yeah. What's on how are you, mate? Saying it was like a Lotus Esprit. Okay. Chauncey Fatsack, good to see you, Kiwi. It was good to have you along, man. Thanks for joining in. Don Bella, oiling on a 351 Cleveland is a lot different than a 351 Windsor. Yeah, it is. Yeah. There's there's a lot of differences, and there's they share similarities too. Snow Crusher, murder cycles. I love mine. Yeah. Andy Nicol, lots of ice racing up here in Alberta. Yeah, well, I bet there is. You don't have much option, do you? Place is frozen half the year, isn't it? Or more. So, what else is going on, guys? What's happening this weekend? Have we got events going on around? Well, the big events, the hurricane in Florida, I guess. But hopefully you're all safe and sound. Not getting tied up in that too much. But yeah, let's hear about your projects. Hear about what's happening out there in Cyberland. J. Russell Finch, Brocky like the supernatural. Yeah, they faked a crashed UFO on Brock's rural property and made it look like a crash retrieval was in progress. Brock was a believer in UFOs, so he fell for it hook, line, and sinker. Really? Huh. Hadn't heard that one. Barracuda, I've heard of Windsors cracking between the cylinder banks of pushing for lots of horsepower. Yeah, they can. They can. I've seen pictures of that where they split basically down through the camshaft tunnel and they just start to open up. Some people say if you go more than 500 horse, you're going to run into that issue. But you can get Ford Motorsport blocks and stuff like that. And a mate of mine's got a regular blocked 302 that's straight. I think it's 331 straight out to, and he's making insane horse, like well north. He's well over 600 horse. It's at 9,500 RPM. 9,500 RPM. And the blocks staying together just fine. I think sometimes those blocks come apart because the engine's not happy. There's one thing I've found over the years, there's a big difference between a guy who can put an engine together well, and efficiently, and between the guy who can build a race engine. There's a difference. There really is a difference. You can go through the step by step of assembling an engine and checking bearing clearances and stuff like that. But then there's the really talented guys that make the big horsepower. They have lots of little secrets and tricks and things that they do, and the right guy can get will make an engine survive that's making 700 horsepower, and a guy who's not so skilled, they'll lose it at 450. They'll blow an engine with 450 horse. And it's a little bit of a black art. I'm not saying I know how to do it. A mate of mine in New Zealand, a guy called Tony Marsh, is probably one of the best engine builders in the world. One of the best in the world. He builds engines that hold a lot of records, and yeah, you get him on the bourbon, and he'll let a few little things slip, and tell little secrets, and it's not as big secrets, but the knowledge and the way those guys think is just like next level. Yeah, it's quite interesting. I could sit down with that guy for hours and just pick his brains, because and if you ask the right questions, he'll open up to you a little bit more. Like if you're asking intelligent questions, and he can see that you're understanding what he's saying, then he lets a little bit more come out. He doesn't want to vomit up lots of information that's going over someone's head. They're like, it's a waste of time. But as I say, if you ask the right questions, you can get some very interesting answers. Barracuda, you may well have heard of Tony Marsh. I mean, he does a lot of drag racing engines, a lot of circuit car, does Aussie touring car engines. Like I was looking at a post of his just this week gone, and he's honing a Formula Ford block, which is a class of racing in New Zealand and Australia and England. And getting the nth degree out of those engines, like they were, like people hone an engine block, right? They just hone it out, get the measurements right, and then if you're getting a bit more serious, you put the head plate on, which simulates having a head torqued onto the block, and then they hone it then, so that because the blocks move a little bit when you put all that torque on them. Well, Tony's at the next level again, with the head plate that they bolt on, to simulate having a head on there, and you can still have the hole so you can run the hone down it. Their one is heated, in that they run hot water. They have a burner that creates hot water up to like 190 degrees, and they run that 190 degree water through this head plate or torque plate, and through the block, through the galleries in the block, and back out again. And that, so you simulate honing it. You hone it to exactly the right, like point, half a thou, but it's at its full operating temperature, so that everything's absolutely how it is on race day. And that's how they get 3 or 4 more horsepower out of them, which it makes a difference of, when you're slipstreaming down the back straight, that means you can pull out and not slow down. On these little class cars, you can get in the towers, the guy in front of you, like you'll be following along, and then you pull out to try and pass, and then as you pull out, you hit that clear air, and you see them, they'll slow down and they come back, and they're like they got to pull back into the slipstream, because they can stay on their tail. As soon as they pull out and hit the unbroken air, it pushes them back. But if you got 3 or 4 more horsepower, you can pull out and you can creep by, and that's why they go hunting for this nth degree. There's just the last couple of horsepower that the other guy hasn't got. But I was pretty impressed with that, like a heated torque plate block, setup. I thought it was pretty out there. Darwin Foster, everyone mistakes the 351 Cleveland for the 351M, which are 2 totally different engines. Yeah, they are. They're not. They are different engines, absolutely. I'm not sure that I'd say they're totally different, but there is a bunch of differences. Yeah, it's not the same engine. It's not totally different, like between a Ford and a Chev, but it's the same family. But yeah. Andy Nichols, still working on the Martin guitar. 2 more coats of lacquer should do it. Looking pretty good so far. Wow. How many coats have you got on, Andy? Like, I remember on some of the hot rod paint jobs we used to do, you'd put like 12, 14, 16 coats of clear on. The coats were thin too. That's not like the clear coat, the modern clear coats where 2 coats is normal, 3 coats is a lot of clear. And then, the real show car guys, they'll put 3 coats on, sand one off, getting it dead flat again, like with 600, and then, put another 2 or 3 coats on. And that gets you that really deep, clear gloss. But the lacquer was a lot thinner. So, that 12 or 14 coats of lacquer was probably like a 6-coat modern clear job. Glenn Nickerson, a buddy of mine used to ice race on his bike, put self-tapping screws. Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen little video clips of them doing that. It's crazy. From the inside, right? They'd actually, they'd take the tyre off and run the screws in from inside the tyre. You would not want to get run over. That would tear you up. Dancers with Empties. That's a good name. Looking at mid-70s Dodge D200 Club Cab, 360 auto 2-wheel drive. Is there any collectability on these trucks nowadays? Yeah, I'm going to say not really. Not a lot. It's not a particularly sought after car. I mean, you get a lot of admirers for it, I'm sure, and it'd be a cool truck. But people aren't going to, like it's not a Yenko Camaro. It's not a Shelby Mustang. It's, but yeah, the Dodge truck guys would love it. Yeah. So, I'm sure it's a lot more collectible than a Ford Ranger, put it that way. Like a 90s Ford Ranger, way more collectible than that. Dan's Garage, did you ever do a video on straightening a bumper? No. Honestly, no. I have done it a couple of times over the years, but I mean, most of the time, particularly here in the States, you're much, unless it's something where you can't get them, but straightening a Mustang bumper is just a waste of time. Well, not so much a waste of time, but it's a waste of the customer's money, because you can buy one. You buy a repop one for $150, and time you spend the labour straightening it, and then spend probably $750 to rechrome it here. You got an expensive Mustang bumper, Again, if it's a Shelby Mustang, you're doing a resto on it, then you spend the money, because you want all original Ford parts on it. But yeah, the bumpers, I mean, yeah, if it's an old one that you can't get anymore and you've got to get it rechromed, then what I'll usually do is send it to the chrome shop, because they're more skilled at straightening them. To be honest, like they got the big hammers and the big tools to beat the shit out of them. Like with 50s and 60s bumpers were tough, man. They're strong. So you had to wail on them, especially the 50s. Good grief. A lot of the times you got to press them. You got to have a big press with the right shape dies, and not dies, but right little pieces of metal to push into the back of the bumper to try and get it straight. So yeah, that usually gets like sent off to the chrome shop that will straighten as well. But yeah, they're very thin on the ground now. Very thin on the ground. Barry Cooter, ever had anything to do with a Ford Cosworth DFV V8? Mate, I wish I could say yes to that. I really do. They were an awesome engine. They dominated Formula One for years. And it really, it wasn't that it was a Ford V8. It was that it was done by Cosworth. Cosworth had some very, very clever people there. putting all the Cosworth bits on the Ford base. So it really, it was a Cosworth Ford V8, not a Ford Cosworth V8, in my opinion. But yeah, fantastic engine. I'd love to have got my hands on one of them, or even just been looking over someone's shoulder who was working on one. Would have been interesting. Andy Nicol, after this Martin is done, I have a 1905 Martin for a complete restoration. A 1905, I haven't even heard of a 1905 Martin. Huh. Didn't realise that was a car make, Martin. John Sabo, Kiwi, have you talked to Uncle Tony, mate? Not for months, I haven't, no. Unfortunately. Yeah, it's kind of out of my control, that one. Andy Nicol, 7 coats so far, including pour, filler, and sealer. Right. Yeah, how many to go, Andy? You've got a few more to go? It's great to work with Lacquer. I love, I miss those days of working with Lacquer. That was great. John Sabo, missed the lives from there. Yeah, we had fun. The lives I did with Tony, I missed doing those. They were fun. Just that interaction that we had, and he could poke fun at me and I could poke fun at him, and it was good. It worked out well. But Tony's shut that door and shut it tight, and that's there you go. Jeff, hi from Adelaide, South Australia. Bit early here for a bourbon. Did you ever drive a Holden 253 cubic inch V8? Yeah, I did. Good little performance for a small engine, 4 litre, 4.1. I think they're 4.4. Yeah, 4 or 4.1. Good little performer. Small-ish V8. Off some of the, like the 250 Ford 6 was, in its later versions, was a match for the 253. But yeah, it's that was built. That 253 was built because gas is 4 times the price that it is in America. So yeah, fuel economy was a much more of a concern way back then. But yeah, good little engine. John Sabo, how's March coming along? The last I really touched it was that power steering upgrade, and I haven't had time to get back to it. It's been just busy as heck at the workshop. But been making some good progress there. So I'll not quite sure some of the next projects on March are a little bit bigger and a little more time consuming, like doing the floors and stuff like that. That's going to take a few hours to get through that, but I mean, it's got to be done. So I'll get to it. But yeah, it'd be nice to get it a little more weatherproof, get some floors in it, for heading into winter, and see if we can't get the heat working. Because at the moment it's just got a big hole in the firewall where there was a fresh air on and off kind of vent, but that's gone. So I might seriously look at putting some vintage air, but like vintage air, heat and air combo in it, just so that, I want to get air conditioning in it anyway, and I was thinking about putting an under-dash unit in it, just one that hangs under the dash, and have the original heater. But given that some of the heater parts are missing, it might be just as efficient really to go with the vintage air, like hidden under the dash, full heat and air system. So that's budget permitting. That's a definite possibility. 672E Galaxy. Hey Kiwi, keep up the great work. Your channel is always a pleasure to watch. Exceptional work. Well, thank you, man. I appreciate that. it's quite humbling getting the compliments from you guys that I get. It's like, I'm just doing what I do. But yeah, at the same time, I appreciate it. I do try to do good work, and it's nice when it's appreciated. So yeah, thank you. Don't care too. Evening Kiwi, enjoying your video. Thanks. Yeah, well, that was a debacle. That bloody the heights falling in that Mustang. Yeah, I posted that up on Sunday night. Quite pleased with myself, thinking that's a good, nice long video. It should do good. And then the sound had all gone to shit. And what it had actually done was it played perfectly in the video application, in the editing application, the editing suite they call it, and it played perfectly. But then you uploaded it or downloaded it to my computer, and it takes it. The system takes it apart again and puts it back together as a high definition. And you do all your editing in a low def, and then this is all very technical, and I may not be making any sense, but I only just barely grasp it myself. But yeah, as you're editing it, they break it down to a low def, and then you do the editing, and then they split it apart again and take it back up to high definition. And somewhere in that, it was losing a minute. It lost a minute of the video, and basically compressed, brought the rest of the video in to fill the gap, but the sound stayed the same. So suddenly, I think it was 5 minutes, 44 seconds. The video was just, the sound was just like that, a minute out. So it just was like, son of a gun. So I tried everything I could on Sunday night to fix it, and I couldn't fix it. So I reached out to the video editing company, and they eventually fixed it for me. And I gave them the link, and they went in to my editing suite, grabbed it, got it figured out, and sent me an email saying, we've done this, this, and this, and if this ever happens again, there was this list of shit you have to do. Like, if it ever happens again, I'm like, oh, that's over my head. Sorry, can't do that. But they fixed that video, and so I put it back up again tonight. So it's kind of screwed the video a little bit in that, that first 30 minutes is quite important to a video, and how many views you get, and the popularity of it, and that sort of stuff. So the one from Sunday night, I ended up just switching on to private mode, because everybody that was watching it was commenting that your sound's out, your sound's wrong. And it's like, yeah, I get it. And I was frantically trying to fix it, but it was beyond my motorhead brain to fix something that electronically technical. So, so I just put it on private, and then reposted it tonight. And it'll be okay. And the guys that want to watch it will watch it. But yeah, that was a bit frustrating, because those 40-minute videos, you put a lot of time into the editing. I think I did a count. There was about 24 different pieces of video in that one video, and you've got to clip them out and line them all up and put them in their place and in the right order. And then, and it's more work, there's a lot of work goes on behind the scenes that you don't, it's 4 hours to do a 40-minute video, And then when it all goes to hell because of nothing I did, it was just some weird electronic glitch. And it was like, son of a bitch. Yeah, there you go. Andy Nickel, Martin guitar. Not thinking. Too many bourbons, mate. Yeah, that's my second tonight. Martin guitar. Why didn't I realise that? I just when I read the year and then okay, my bad. Andy Nickel, I prefer using UV cure polyester, but I'm having trouble getting it here. Yeah, that UV cure is pretty cool. That is pretty amazing stuff. That technology. It's relatively new. But yeah, I got that friend of mine, Kevin Tates, who's like, the painting guru. He gave me a can of that UV primer. And yeah, if you keep it out of the sun, it does not set. It doesn't dry. And then you poke it outside and voila, done. But apparently, it's more for the collision industry, where they have ultraviolet lights and they can put it on. They can just, point an ultraviolet UV light at it, and it's cured, done, ready to sand. So of course, in that collision industry, it's all about time, saving time, like getting cars out the door, boom, 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 boom. 6, 7, 8 cars a day. out of one paint booth, So yeah, but it's pretty cool stuff, and it's just going to keep evolving, because if they can use less solvents, less catalysts and stuff like that, and actually just use the sunlight to make something set and go hard, well, that's less VOCs, I think they call it. So, which the EPA is like killing us on all the VOCs. Stray Bullet 3393. Aston Martin was founded in 1913. Okay. I didn't know that. I do love Aston Martins, though. They're some of the sexiest cars out there, in my opinion. Those DB9s and some of that stuff, that later model stuff, is very, very nice. J. Russell Finch, have you fixed Marge's speedo yet, mate? I don't. I really take it on the interstate. So like just round town running. That's mostly what I do with it. You don't hear that problem. And the last time I took it out, I think the last time I took it on the interstate was when I took it to the drag races that night with Tony. And like coming back from there, I was making a hell of a racket, and I'm like, oh yeah, I was supposed to put some ATF down the cable, So I thought about it briefly, and that was, Monday morning came along, and nothing ever happened. Barracuda, I saw an ex-Denny Holm Yardley McLaren F1 car at Highlands Motorsport Park being warmed up and started. It sounded magnificent. I'll bet it did. Yeah. Denny Holm, there was a talented man, and obviously McLaren. McLaren's a Kiwi-based company originally. Awesome to see them doing so well in Formula One again, instead of just all. It was quite tragic watching them just run around at the back of the field, just being also rans. And then it seemed like in a very short space of time they've become almost dominant. You know that they're, if there's an F1 race this weekend, there's a decent chance McLaren's going to win it, which is awesome. Good to see Red Bull getting, having to work for their living a bit more. Red Bull was so dominant. Yeah. Now, nobody's commented on. I'll try and point to the right thing. No one's commented on this tonight. I was expecting you guys to be asking me, what's that? So ask away. And that's relative to the Formula One, so that'll make sense in a minute. Jeff R, if a battery is moved to the trunk with an isolation switch, should the alternator charge wire also run to the battery positive in the trunk? No, it doesn't have to. No. Typically, like my Mustang, I've got the batteries in the trunk. We got a nice, zero gauge, nice thick zero gauge cable running up to the front, and it's bolted to basically a small little engine mount, like a two-studded engine mount. I can't remember what it was off, but we just found it like on the shelf at Napa or O'Reilly's or something. It was almost, like a mount about yay big with a stud out each side. One side's bolted into the body of the car. The battery terminal goes on the other one. And that's where all the power comes off that one point, and it's rubber mounted, so it can't go to ground. And then you just add terminals to this like 5/16 stud that's coming out of the engine mount, and that's where you run your alternator wire to, is to that same common point up at the front of the car, and then the charge will run back down that battery lead, no problem, and charge the battery easy. As long as you don't try and do it with a 6-gauge cable, because then you're going to run into trouble because it's too far. You need a fat cable to run a longer distance. It's not unlike a hose pipe. If you've got a really long, small diameter hose, you're going to get not much water out of it. If you've got a short, small diameter water hose, you're going to get quite a bit of water out of it. The longer it is, the more restrictive it is, and it's exactly the same with electrical cable. The thinner it is, the longer it is, it's got to be thicker to allow the power to run through it. It's very much like a hose, a water hose. John Noskowski, hey Kiwi, how you doing, man? Welcome along. Andy Nicol. I first used UV in 2003. Standard polyester is nasty stuff. I love it. I use a lot of it. Well, we're not doing much painting anymore. But I'm a big fan of standard polyester as far as being great for blocking cars and getting them straight because it doesn't really shrink. I had no idea that UV stuff had been around for 20 years. That's wild. I did not know that. Didn't know that. Manuel Perez. Maybe you all know this already. I didn't. So thanks for putting the comment in. Aston Martin was built by a tractor company, David Brown, like Lamborghini. Lamborghini started making tractors. David Brown. That's where the DB designations came from. The DB9, DB, all the DB5s, all the DB models. I had no idea. I've heard of David Brown tractors many times. What are we talking about here, guys? Watched it right, Bill Duffany. Watched it right before coming on here. The video was great. Which video are you talking about, guys? I must have missed that there somewhere. 6th Street Garage, Honda Rally Cars. Well, no, it's a Toyota rally car, mate. It's a Toyota. Toyota Corolla. And let's see. You can see the little name there. Carlos Sainz, which is his son is now driving the Ferrari in Formula One by the same name as like Carlos Sainz Jr. But yeah, who's an extremely good peddler as well. But I mean, he's strictly roundy stuff, tarmac stuff. This is a gravel rally car. You can tell the huge mud flaps on it. This is a gravel car, which they also do tarmac rallies in them. But not circuit racing. But yeah, that's like a 99 Toyota Corolla rally car, World Championship rally car. So kind of cool. Lots of little detail in it. So what do we got? A reasonable amount of get up to the camera. Yeah, it's not a great deal of detail, but cool little car. And then got that one out tonight as well. Hands up. Who knows what that is? Comment below. A couple of very big name actors made a movie in this, not this car, but the same as this car. Stray bullet. All of those fancy niche auto manufacturers had to pay the bills by building tractors and such at one time or another. Yeah, there's probably some truth to that, man. I mean, that's how Lamborghini started. He was building tractors and he loved cars, and I haven't seen the movie, but there was a movie about Lamborghini. I think there was a movie about Lamborghini and Ferrari, and he made some suggestions to Enzo about ways of improving his Ferrari, which Enzo didn't take kindly to at all, and told him to go back to making tractors. That's all he was good at. So he made Lamborghinis and kind of stuck it to Ferrari to some degree. Yeah. 6th Street Garage. You were very close, mate. Yeah, very close. Yeah, Toyota rally car. Is the Borg-Warner diff in my VH Valiant the same as what's called the Chrysler 8 3/4? I don't believe it is, no. I don't believe it is. Borg-Warner was a different company. So no, I don't think it is the same. What's on it to be? Cadillac? You're close. Yeah, Stray Bullet, Buick. Yep. What's on the Buick? 6th Street Garage Buick. What year? What year, guys? You got to be a bit more. The portholes gave away the Buick a little bit. So you got to give me a year. Clean Nickerson and Ford built tractors probably one of the most enduring. Stinking emoji only does green. It should be blue. Long Island Mopars. I have a hubcap for a 47 Buick. Came off my grandparents' car and hangs in my garage. Oh, that's cool. It's a good little bit of memorabilia for you. That's cool. Snow Crusher, the Rain Man Buick car. Yes, it is the Rain Man Buick car. Yeah. So any ideas on the year? Stray Bullet. Ford almost immediately started making tractors along with automobiles. Okay. 55, no, close. 53, no, that's colder. 38, definitely not. 48, very close. Very close, Stray Bullet. John Gittins, one of his last races, Carlos Sainz crashed before the finish line and threw his helmet into the hatchback window, caught on the video. Yeah, actually, he didn't crash. They blew the engine. The engine let go within sight of the finish line. I actually remember watching that. Yeah, he didn't crash, but yeah, he didn't just miss out on winning the rally. That cost him the world championship. Yeah, that was so. Yeah, he threw his bricks out of his pram, as they like to say in New Zealand and Australia. Yeah, he was not happy. Redneck 5356. Do you rebuild gas tanks at your shop? Not typically. If it's a rare one, that is not too bad. I'll solder them up. If they've got some pinholes, like Marge's fuel tank, which is unique to the wagon, very hard to get. And the ones that you can get, have rusted in the same places. They unfortunately had a bracket on the bottom of the tank. It's inside the rear quarter, and there's a big bracket, like an L-shaped bracket that bolts in and goes underneath the tank and holds it up. Well, of course, all the shit comes off the back wheel and works its way in between this bracket and the tank, and they want to rust through right there where the dirt and moisture's trapped. So Marge had a few, I started with one pinhole, we put fuel in it, started leaking. It was like out of one spot. So then, heated it up, soldered it up, and then two more appeared and soldered those up, and then like three more appeared. We ended up soldering up about 7 or 8 pinholes. Finally got it. Possibly what I should have done is actually cut a section out and welded a piece in. But, I thought I was soldering up one hole, and then the more you mess with it, the more little, it's paper thin in places, which you can't see. But as you mess with it and you're cleaning it and putting the heat on it, cooling down heat, the little rust scale will pop off and a little leak will start. So yeah, had I known I had 7 or 8 leak pinholes, and I'd probably cut that section out and just welded it in. But that's a necessity thing. When you can't get the tanks, you kind of have to. But it's always a chore, because you've got to make sure you get all the fumes out of the gas tank before you start welding on them, because they will blow up. I mean, not Hollywood blow up, but they will blow up. I've had a gas tank go boom on me, and yeah, that was. It was loud, and the fuel tank like shot off the bench I was working on. It like the pressure went out the filler neck, which was pointed kind of left, and the tank just left in the opposite direction at a great rate of knots and landed on the far side of the workshop. Fortunately, there was no cars in the way, because it travelled probably 25 feet. To where it ended up at. So it left at speed. There was no catching it. Well, it just went boom, and I kind of pulled my head back and like, fuck, where'd the tank go? Looking around, trying to find the tank. Like I was staring at it intently. I was like, welding on it, and it went boom, and I'm, like I said, staring at it, and I didn't see it leave. It just went exit, stage right, boom, gone. So it was, it's like, ooh, okay. That could have been worse. Bill Duffany, the Mustang video you put the 4 link in. Okay. What was there a question with that? I must have missed it. Try and find it. Oh, Bill, okay. I watched it right before coming on here and the video was great. Okay, I'm with you. All right. Sometimes it's because it scrolls up, whether you're reading or not. It's over on the side here, on the side of the computer screen, and it just, the questions and comments just keep scrolling up and you don't always catch them all. So that makes sense. I'm glad you enjoyed the video. Like I did put a lot of work into that, and then it was a mess on Sunday night, which was a little bit deflating. But no, it's come together good now. So yeah. What's on it to be 49 Roadmaster? Exactly. You hit the nail on the head. You cheated. Snow Crusher 49 Buick Roadmaster. Yep. Now, for all of you that are absolutely fascinated by 49 Buick Roadmasters, and I'm sure most of you are, this one, and I'll try and get the profile right for you. I actually had one of these in New Zealand. I imported it from the States before I left New Zealand. So I imported a 49 Buick Roadmaster convertible, and I got it here, and it turns out it was the very early 49 Buick Roadmaster, which had the chrome trim on the side. Instead of coming up, see, it starts a little lower here and comes up and goes over the fender. The early 49s, it was straight through and actually stopped like a bit lower. Yeah, try and do that. This is tricky to do while watching the screen, but it came through lower, like along here, and stopped in front of the wheel arch, or behind the wheel arch, I should say. It was a straight line. And the other thing they did, early 49, the trunk, and I'm trying to get this so you can kind of see it in profile. Look at the deck lid. The deck lid is quite squared, and the early 49 ones had a much flatter trunk on them, or boot. And then they had a lot of complaints when they were selling them that you couldn't, the spare wheel had to lay flat in the trunk, and it took up so much room in the trunk that people were complaining about the lack of storage space. So they raised the deck lid up, squared it off, made it much more vertical at the back and then horizontal, so that they could stand the spare wheel up on its side and make a lot more room in the trunk. Turns out that was a very, very rare car. I didn't realize what I had, but that's the way it goes. Yeah, little pointless bit of information you can store away for nothing, for future use. Manuel Perez. I hear you, Stray Bullet, not trying to be. It's seen it in a documentary. Yeah. Got to get back to panel beating and cutting out rust. Yeah, well, somebody's got to do it, man. Somebody's got to do it. But thanks for joining in, meanwhile. Roadmaster or Loadmaster. Definitely a Roadmaster. Hey, you were a big deal if you had one of those back in 49. You were a big deal. So what else is happening out there, guys? Awkward silence. Yeah. All right, so is anybody on here, or is anyone here close to this hurricane that's going on? I'm hoping that nobody's going to be impacted too badly. It looks pretty grim down there, but hopefully you guys are all going to be okay. Fishing Gerald, who is usually on here, but I haven't seen him tonight. He got slammed by that hurricane a week or so ago, Helene. He got a bit slammed by that, so he's probably busy mopping up after that, and hopefully he's not getting hit again. He's more Georgia. I think this latest one's more over Florida, but yeah, it would be some scary shit, I think. Barracuda, I've got a Buick V6 in my Commodore. I'm very impressed with it. Yeah, they Holden used a V6, which was the GM V6 3.8 litre. I think they were. I'm not sure whether they were in New Zealand spec or not. I don't remember. But here they were a 3.8. Yeah, good engine. They made a hell of a lot of them, and they weren't perfect, but they're a pretty darn good engine. What's on to be the car and driver pick of the Rain Man picture auctioned car, or the Rain Man picture auction car. The picture car was auctioned. Looks to have side trim like mine, like the model car here. You mean? Yeah, that's the Rain Man one. I'm pretty sure that's the same as the Rain Man one, unless it had the straight side trim. Not really sure now that I think about it. GFR, my isolation switch alternator wire question was more thinking about a race crash and needing to kill a running engine by the rescue queue. Yeah, that's there's usually rules and regulations on that as to where you back in the day, and I mean it could be the same, it could be completely different now. When I was racing, you had to have it on the driver's side, which was the right hand side, just below the windshield in that cowl area near the wipers. It had to be somewhere there, and that was the universal place it had to be, so that the crews would always know where to look. The safety crews would always know where to look. But they were they were a nuisance because they would often get water in them, and they'd start giving little issues, connectivity issues and stuff like that, which was always a pain. I may or may not have actually bypassed that kill switch after scrutineering on one occasion when we were having trouble with it. I may have taken both cables that are normally on either side of the switch and just put them together, which wasn't really correct, but stopped the misfire. Stray bullet. I couldn't see the trim on the Buick clearly. I'm speeding down the freeway in heavy traffic right now. Oh, good Lord. Well, be careful. Shouldn't be watching, or hopefully you're just listening and not watching. Not much to watch other than my ugly mug, so yeah, keep your eyes on the road, boy. Long Island Mopars. My cousin is in Naples, and she bugged out on Sunday for Fort Lauderdale. Okay, well, I mean, I hope she's, best wishes to her. I hope she's good. Sounds like this thing's hitting most of Florida. I'm not sure there's really much in the way of a safe area in Florida from what I've been seeing. But, yeah. What's on it to be? No, like yours that you imported. Okay, interesting. I have to go back and have a look at that. Yeah, okay, could well be. John Gittins, how long is your Christmas holiday in New Zealand for? Okay. Most places close down for a couple of weeks, at least over Christmas. It's kind of a fairly standard length of time to shut down for, because it's the middle of summer. Everybody wants to go on nice long Christmas holidays. And the part of the reason of that is on Christmas we get 2 days annual leave, paid leave. So you'll get Christmas Day, the day after Christmas, and then another 2 days. So it always kind of falls in with a weekend usually. So you get 4 days, and then you have like 2 or 3 days back at work, and then you get another 4 days. So people just make that, like coming back to work for a week, for a week, coming back to work for 2 days or maybe 3 days, 2 weeks in a row is just, it's not very productive. So yeah, most places just shut down over like that Christmas and New Year break. It's usually a couple of weeks, if not more. So it's a nice little break. Honestly, it's a nice little break. John Gittins, have you raced at the old Taupo race circuit? No, I haven't. Oh, John, were you asking about the American Christmas Oh, no, you said New Zealand. How long is the Christmas holiday in New Zealand for? John Giddens, have you raced at the old Taupo race circuit? No, never raced at Taupo. Raced at Bay Park, raced at Pukekohe, but not Taupo. Or that newer one in Auckland now, that was something Downs. Botany Downs, I think they call it, racetrack. And no, never raced out. I don't think it was actually open when I left New Zealand. It hadn't quite opened yet. Has diplomatic immunity versus hurricanes. Oh, good Lord. Roy Miller, any thoughts on what engine combo Marge will end up with? Yeah, I keep bouncing backwards and forwards. I keep looking at that Hemi in my workshop thinking that would be kind of cool to have a Hemi in Marge. And then it's like, well, that engine's done so good. And tell you what, it's as tired as it is. That's probably one of the best starting engines that I've got at the shop out of customer cars, my cars, any of them. Like you leave it for a couple of weeks, you jump in, you hit the key, and it just boom, and it just starts and it idles super slow and super smooth. It just smokes a bit, which is So yeah, if I stick with the engine that's in Marge, I will stroke it out to 390 cubic inch. That's kind of a definite, because we're going to have to, I'm sure we're going to need to grind the crank in Marge and rebore it. So like for the cost of a crank and a set of rods, because even if I use what's stock, I've got to, I'm going to have to grind the crank almost definitely. I'm going to have to rebore it, put different pistons on it. So all I've really got to front up for is different set of rods and a crank, and then I'll go from 318 to 390 or 390 something, depending how much you bore it. Which, that's really, Marge is not a lightweight, she's a heavy old girl, and I'm sure she'd go better with a fresh 318 in it, but 390 cubic inch, I think that would really, that would bring her up to today's kind of speeds. I mean, not SRT8 speeds, but just to be able to keep up with Mum's people mover, most of those are 300 horse now. V6 Camaros are 300 and something horse. People look down their nose at those. But yeah, there's Marge. I think it was 230 horsepower when she was new. She's probably 150 now, maybe. So yeah, so even if freshen her up and get her back to 230, we could put twin 4 barrels, which I've got the intake for on the 318. I think they added about 20 horsepower, so it's still only like 250, which like you're kind of going to struggle to keep up with the flow of traffic, with that. And so yeah, just for me, it'd be nice just to whack it out to 6.6 litre and have a little bit of get up and go. It's probably only going to bump it up to, I don't know, maybe 3 and a bit, 3 and a quarter, something like that. But that's still going to be 100 more than she had when she was new. So that'll do me. So yeah, or just go all in with the 392 Hemi. I don't know. I keep flipping and flopping. We'll see. Hampton Downs, not Botany Downs. That's it. John Giddens, yeah. So John Giddens, you know about Hampton Downs and Taupo, but you weren't sure how long the Christmas holiday is in New Zealand for. Are you a Kiwi or an American? You seem to know quite a bit about New Zealand, so I'm kind of puzzled by the Christmas question. Volfly, rough day today. Torquing the head bolts on a 5.3 GM GDI motor nearly killed me. Torque to yield bolts got thicker, and after torquing it, my digital wrench read 186 foot-pounds. Wow. Yeah, that will. You probably have some sore muscles tomorrow. Yeah, probably will. Yeah, that's quite a bit of effort when you do it over. Gosh, how many head bolts have they got? Yeah, probably a good 20 or more. MVP is me. Be careful trying to keep up with traffic. That leads to wanting to pass them. Yeah, it does. Yeah, I know what you're saying. J. Russell Finch. It must be nice to be surrounded in parts and supplies in the States. Imagine the difference in being in New Zealand. Oh yeah, yeah. Uh, yeah. There's nothing like a trip back to New Zealand and trying to buy something, and then you realise how far away you are in New Zealand and how hard stuff is to get. You know, when I was back in New Zealand trying to get the Mustang I built for my old man complied. It was like, wow, it really reminded me just how good I've got it, or the automotive uh, industry in the States has got it. You just get parts so quickly and readily. We're all really spoilt, and then you go back to New Zealand, it's like I can remember dashing in a couple of paces, just trying to buy some brake line, the steel brake line. Um, it wasn't hard to find, but it wasn't easy to find either. And then trying to get any. I remember I had to get one part for the steering, and I got it air freighted from the States because it was the only way to get it, and had to pay, but I needed it while I was there. I had 2 weeks back, and I had to get the shit here, and I had to get the stuff to New Zealand. So you didn't ask how much the shipping was. You just said send it, and tried not to think about it. Stray bullet, just put a Hellcat in it and call it good, Kiwi. No, that'd be one of the engines I wouldn't put in. I'm not going to put a late model Hemi in March. It just, for me personally, it doesn't fit, and I don't mean literally. Obviously, you can make anything fit, but it doesn't fit with the theme of the car, how I see the car. It needs to be either the Poly or the Hemi. That's the only two options, in my opinion. I mean, my car, my opinion. Yeah, but you're not the first person to suggest a late model Hemi or a Hellcat, and it would be nice to have 700 or more horsepower. It absolutely would, but yeah, Marge is such a cruiser. I just don't imagine really going, hammering on her particularly. I don't see the result in it. Like the Mustang I've got, you can hammer on that, and it's fun. It really is fun, and for the most part illegal. But Marge is just not. It's too long. It's too heavy, and she's a cruiser. She just looks good. It's just comfortable to drive in, and it just needs to have some. She needs to be able to answer when you put your foot down on the interstate to pull out and pass. So if I can get her up around 350 horse, I'll be quite happy with that. Vilefly taking muscle relaxers tonight, probably not a bad option, but not a bad option. You'll be tight tomorrow, I suspect. Barracuda. I know someone who got hold of a tri-power manifold in Carms for a 318 poly. I think it's from Edelbrock. I don't. As far as I know, Edelbrock aren't making that now. They may have done once upon a time, but I don't. I'm pretty sure they don't. That's not something that's available new now. The twin fours is they seem to be a bit more common. They're actually, believe it or not, a twin 4-barrel manifold is easier to get for a poly than a single 4-barrel manifold. Factory didn't produce that many single 4 barrels, and the people who have got them are not coming off them. That's the reason there are a lot of people are coming off the 2 barrels, the 2 4 barrels, I should say. But if you've got one 4-barrel, people just they put them on the car, they leave them on the car, and that's where they stay. They you can buy one, but you got to buy the rest of the car with it. Stray bullet. The Kiwis are not without resources. They turn out some nice stuff there. Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Kiwi. That's where the whole Kiwi ingenuity phrase comes from, which is born from Kiwi necessity. Uh, John Gittins. Okay, now you make sense. Now I get it now. Kiwi Christmas question was about you coming back to New Zealand to see family and the like. Yeah, I land on like the 13th of December, I think it is, 12th or 13th. And yeah, I'm there till I think we fly out. So you can tell who plans these holidays, can't you? It's not me. That's the wife's domain. It's Mrs. Kiwi's domain. I just, she says, have a bag packed. I was like, okay. Yeah, so we'll be back for just a bit over 2 weeks, in 3 weeks, sorry. So yeah, I'm hoping to catch up with as many of you guys as I can in New Zealand. I'm not quite sure what event. There doesn't seem to be a lot of events around that time, which kind of makes sense because it's very much a Christmas, New Year, good old Kiwi summer holidays kind of time of year. I guess not everyone's wanting to dash off to car shows. I know there's a car, like a smaller car show in Auckland the weekend. Like we think we get there on a Friday, and like that Saturday or Sunday, there's something happening in Auckland. So I'm probably going to try and get to that. So yeah, I'll find out a bit more about that, and either do a video on it, post about it on the channel, or even here. There's a lot of you guys on here on these lives are Kiwis, and that's awesome. But there's other Kiwis that watch as well, and I'm all about catching up with as many of you guys as I can. And if we can do it at one place, it'd be awesome. I'll have my old man's Mustang, which is a pretty car. So I want to kind of take that to a show and get to chat to you guys face to face. It would be awesome. Volfly, that 5.3 GDI motor I took apart was the most carbon-choked engine I've ever seen. I'm going to make up some steam injection apparatus to deal with this in future. Huh. Okay. Yeah, steam. Yeah. Okay. It's steam certainly cleans, or water vapor, cleans stuff up. If you ever, I'm sure you have, stripped down an engine with a blown head gasket that's into the water, into the water jacket. Usually that cylinder is the cleanest cylinder in the engine. All the carbon and coke has been washed away or blown away by the water that comes in, which is all turns to steam instantly. What have we got here? How to rippering. Tough. I don't know how to say that. Tough enough. Tough enough. Tough enough. Tough enough. I don't know. How to rippering V-belt. I'm not sure what the question is, mate. I think you might have dropped a typo in there. Try that one again, man. Fleetwood, does New Zealand experience hurricanes ever? Not. They call them cyclones, and yeah, we've had some good ones. Not really. It's not like a seasonal thing. Like every year, like there's hurricanes slamming into the states, and it's just how bad and where New Zealand does get the odd one that does some damage, but not to the same extent. It's a much smaller landmass, so it doesn't. I don't really. I'm not that up on what causes hurricanes, but I know you need a bit more landmass than New Zealand has typically. John Gittins, I'm a Kiwi, live down the road from Skyline Sky Rides in Rotorua. Car show first week of January, Rotorua Village Green. You got a date, bub? I'm trying to think when I leave. I'm pretty Yeah, I think that if it's the first weekend, I'm probably going to miss it. Where's my calendar gone? I think we fly out on like the Friday, which is the 3rd of January. Pretty sure that's when we leave. Yeah, it's the 2nd or the 3rd. Because I know we're in town for New Year's Eve for that party, and then pretty much flying straight back. So if it's that first weekend of January, I'm going to miss that one in Rotorua, which kind of sucks. But that's the flights we could get, So yeah, otherwise I'd be all about it because I'm going to be staying down in Thames, so it's not that far over to Rotorua. But I don't know. Might have to plan our own little gathering somewhere central, like Rotorua or Taupo or something like that. That some of you guys we can just all meet up down somewhere like that. But it's a busy time of year, man. Which I guess is why the car shows aren't that big, because everyone's busy doing New Year's, doing Christmas, doing shopping, doing all that Christmassy stuff. And of course, here it's the middle of winter, so no one's worried about car shows. Vilefly, yep. Water injection never goes out of style. I just can't superheat the steam too much. You can light a match with a superheated dry steam. I didn't know that. Stray bullet. Do they spin in the opposite direction? What are we talking about? Stray bullet. Does the toilet flush in the opposite direction? I believe it does, yes. Andy Nicol, I always wanted to visit New Zealand. I'm a bit past it now. No, you never too. Well, I guess you are too old to travel at times. But hey, if you're young enough to be able to get on a computer and write comments in YouTube, then I think you can find your way to New Zealand. Just do it, man. Just go for it. You only live. We're here for a short time. We're here for a good time, not a long time, I should say. Fleetwood, definitely feel for the Floridians right now. Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, and it must be. It's got to be hard, man. Like knowing this is coming for your place, where you live in, your home, your town, and it's just going to kick the shit out of it. And it's arriving in 24, 36 hours, and you just got to wait. There's not a damn thing you can do. I mean, you put the shutters over the windows and stuff like that to try and minimise the damage, but knowing this thing is coming for your home, your castle, it must be a pretty sinking feeling. Vilefly, I wish I could afford to visit New Zealand, visit the Hobbit village. Yeah, New Zealand's pretty famous for the old Lord of the Rings and the Hobbits. A lot of movies get made in New Zealand, a lot of movies, more than you realise. It's the exchange rate's good, so it's like financially it's quite good for the movie companies to come down to New Zealand, and nowhere near the restrictions in New Zealand as there are in the States. So they kind of with the film industry, they tend to leave them to their own devices a little bit. They can get away with a lot more than they get away with here in the States. John Giddens. Oh, yeah, New Zealand does experience hurricanes for sure. They're just not as prolific as they are here, is all I was trying to say. Yeah, I remember that Wahine disaster, mate. I actually remember watching that on the news. I was a kid, fairly, I was I 7 years old, but I do remember it, and getting my parents to explain it to me because I didn't really get it. But it was a big deal. That was a big deal. Yeah, there was a big ferry. For those who, I'm sure a lot of you on here have got no idea what we're talking about. The Wahine disaster. Wahine was the name of a ship, an inter-island ferry, which was quite a big ferry. Like you'd put cars and trucks and stuff on it, and they'd go from the North Island to the South Island. It's about a 2-hour trip. I think it was a 2-hour trip across the channel between the two main islands. And the hurricane came up, and some mistakes were made, and the thing went over onto its side and sunk, and yeah, that was a big deal. That was a big deal. I mean, to say, I remember I have, yeah, it's one of those funny things that stick with you. I have a mental image of it in my head that never goes, of seeing it on the news, and this big, seemed a bit bigger to me then. I was 7, I guess, but this big ship on its side, and yeah, it's like, whoa, what's that about? As a 7-year-old. So, but yeah, some of those images that stick with you, it was quite a big deal. Barracuda, what cars did you race at tracks like Bay Park? Let's see, what did I race at Bay Park? I raced a Mazda. I had an RX2 Mazda rotary. Raced one of those at Bay Park. We had one weekend there, and at the time I had the RX2 Mazda. I had a couple of those RX2 Mazdas. The first one I had, I also had a '66 Buick Electra, like a huge tank of a car. Even in America, that's a huge tank. In New Zealand, it was like an aircraft carrier. And I raced that around. It was a very casual, just our car club weekend down there. It wasn't a race meet as such. It was just our car club, the local one from Auckland, just a small car club of 30 of us probably went down there, and we just messed around the weekend and raced and messed around. And I raced the Buick around there, the Buick Electra, and it was hysterical. Like, just bags of opposite lock around the corners, the slower corners, and good speed down the straights. And then the little cars were braking at like 50 yards, coming into the hairpin off the end of the back straight, and I was braking at about 250 yards because the Buick drums were not like I was comfortably over 100 mile an hour down the back straight, and in the Buick it was just pulling. And but trying to slow the damn thing down after you'd done a couple of laps was interesting, to say the least. And the thing did reasonably well, because if I'd managed to get in front of you, nobody was brave enough to pass, because the thing was just wagging its tail around every corner. And it was like 19'6" long or something. The Electra, it was a massive car, and I don't think anyone overtook me, because they just weren't brave enough, and because the thing was, for the most part, out of control. I do remember a little. Actually, it's not quite true, because I do remember a little baby Mini with an 850cc engine came flying under me under brakes. He just took a dive and got under me before the Buick got sideways. It was all in good fun. It was all, no one was trying to actually set lap records or anything like that. We were just hooning. We were just being 20 something kids just having a good time. And the most fun of the weekend was really the evenings after the racing, the shenanigans that went on. After dinner and partying afterwards was the really more of the highlight of the weekend. But yeah, it was a bit of fun. The other thing I raced, like at Pukekohe, I raced Evo. What was it? Evo 3 Mitsubishi rally car. That was a bit of fun. Andy Nickel, nah, it's mostly because I'd have to go alone, which would have been okay when I was younger. Yeah, I get that too, but yeah, it's a long way if you're on your own. Yeah, you're a little bit bolder when you're 20 something. I get it. Fair enough. John Giddens. Okay, they've changed the date till the 26th of January, so well outside my time. Yeah, unfortunately, you have to figure something out. I'm just not quite sure what it is yet. Barracuda. I went on the Wahini's sister ship, the Maori, a while after the sinking. A great experience. I didn't even realise that existed. I wasn't aware of that, her sister ship. Huh. John Gittins floundered on Barrett's Reef. Gosh, that's right. I remember that name now that you say it. What's Honda to be? Kiwi. Did New Zealand get any of the 2.2 litre turbo front-wheel drive Mopars that were prevalent here in the States in the 80s? I don't think so, no. They would have been different names. I mean, we got a few of the Starions on Mitsubishi Conquest, but that was an 80s vehicle, not a 90s, as I recall. I don't think we did get the Omni, no. Stray Bullet, minis fight way above their weight. Yes, they do. Well, it's because they don't weigh anything. Gosh, I remember some of the Mini 7s racing, which the Mini 7s were the 850cc ones, which they literally had, there's race cars that have more horsepower in their starter motors than Mini 850 had. But they provided some great racing, normally like 2 abreast around a corner with a regular car was interesting. 3 abreast was, geez, that's exciting, edgier seat stuff. And the minis would be 5 wide. And they were forever just sixteenths of an inch away from like disaster, but they'd managed to go 5 abreast around a corner, all going as fast as they could. Which, okay, it wasn't that fast, but they didn't have to slow down that much for the corners. So yeah, it was exciting to watch. It really was. Stray Bullet, it's fun to watch them at Goodwood. Exactly. Yeah, that's any of you guys that enjoy a bit of, particularly older, like more historical motor racing, that Goodwood Festival of Speed is like fantastic footage comes from that. And you can just YouTube that. They've got it, many years of it, and some of the historical racing is fabulous. Fabulous. Man, we're just about running out of time. We've got 3 minutes left. Gone quick. Stray Bullet, they're definitely momentum cars. Yes, they are. Volfly, ogling 180-degree header from Speedway motors that will never fit. No, it won't. No, it won't. Andy Nickel, out of control at 100 mile per hour. Oh, scary. I lost the oil plug on my Triumph 650 motorcycle at 95 mile an hour. That was exciting. Wow. Whew. Yeah, and you live to tell the tale. Well done. Well done. John, what's on the Chrysler Australia and Mitsubishi tie-in? Yeah. Mitsubishi car available, such as the Magna and Diamante, but I don't think any of them had the 2.3 turbo, but I think they made a turbo Sigma, Mitsubishi Sigma turbo. But I'll be honest with you, I really wasn't paying that much attention to those cars in that era. They were just jappers, and I was all about American, all about American. So yeah, I'm not as informed on some of that stuff as I might be, because I was a little bit of an American car snob at the time, and it was just Jap crap, You live and learn, you change. Some of that Jap stuff I would dearly love to have now, but young and dumb, as they say. Barracuda. Saw a Goodwood race recently, a dice between 63 Galaxy, 65 Barracuda, and an Alpha, the Alpha one. Yeah, well, that kind of figures. Whose idea was it to road course a 63 Galaxy? I mean, those are a tank. They had like tons of power, but yeah, and they didn't handle well. So whose idea was it to turn that into a race car? And they've raced quite a few of them over the years. They're spectacular to watch because they lean and lurch, and the back end comes way up in the air when they haul on the brakes, and they've still got them before they run out. But that's what makes them spectacular to watch, because it's a funny thing. The worst, maybe not quite literally the worst, but the race cars that aren't as good, like Formula One, can be a bit boring to watch because They never slide. They never body roll. They never dip and dive. They're just like, it's like literally like a Space Invaders game. So they're not always that exciting to watch. You put some cars out there that don't handle that well, and they're exciting to watch. That's where Aussie touring cars really got popular because, they were heavy and overpowered as race cars go. So you'd get 10 or 15 laps in, and they'd be drifting around the corners and opposite lock, and they'd be moving around under brakes, and trying to get the things hauled up, and they were exciting to watch. Technically, they weren't as good a race cars, strictly speaking, because at that era that I'm thinking of, they had 2-litre Australian touring cars as well. So a lot lighter, quite a bit less power. Power to rate ratio was not that big a gap, but boring to watch. Because they just didn't do anything wrong. They were just and they didn't go away. The tires didn't go off after 20 laps. They were as quick on lap 30 as they were on lap 1. So they just weren't that exciting to watch, and they disappeared because people love the V8. They love to see the black stripes get left out of the corner. 2 big nice black stripes. As Brocky was hammering it out of the corner, or something like that. So those unwieldy cars like the Galaxy are actually really fun to watch. So yeah, go and have a look at some of that, guys. Honestly, John Gittins, I believe Hillman Imp can outperform a Mini before it overheats. Yeah, that was a problem with the Hillman Imps. I had a Hillman Imp once. Gosh, in my teens. That was my other car. I had a Dodge, 63 Dodge 330, which was a lot of car for I think I was about 17 or 18. At the New Zealand gas prices, that was my weekend car because I couldn't afford to put gas in it 7 days a week. So I had this little wee Hillman Imp that would get me to work and back, and save the gas guzzler, which was a 318 poly, for the weekends. All right, guys. Well, it's 2 minutes past 9. We've gone over time a little bit, which is not the end of the world. But got to go sometimes. Got to go to bed. Got to get another long day's work to do tomorrow. Camaro to get back on 4 wheels and try and straighten out this Mustang Stafia chassis that is not playing the game well at all. So yeah, mate, guys, thanks for joining in. Thanks for coming along. Thanks for all the comments and questions. And yeah, great to have you along. Let's send our thoughts out to the Floridians who are about to get a pasting. Hope they're all good. If if you care about anyone in that area, touch base with them, guys. Touch base with them. You never know. The people are only a phone call away. So touch base with those people you care about that are down that way. Wish them all the best, and I wish you guys all the best. Hopefully you get up to some mischief this weekend if you're not cleaning up after the hurricane, and come back and see me next Tuesday and tell me all about it. All right, guys, we'll take it easy. Have a good one. I'm about out of this, so I think I'm done for the night, though. So, yeah, that pretty well. Okay, see you later, guys. Good night.